time to shake the dust off and begin.
Hey everybody, welcome to Shift Your Story. It's your host, Lucy Price. Let's get started. This episode, we are talking about why you keep falling into toxic relationships. And to start us off, I just want to talk about what a toxic relationship is, or the definition that we are going to be using today, because toxic relationships can become a very generalized umbrella term. So when I say toxic relationship, what I mean is a relationship where you're being threatened in some way. That might be emotionally, that might be psychologically, that might be physically. Some indicators that you might be falling into these relationships is if you feel that your partners in the past have been trying to control you, have tried to isolate you, have tried to have power over you. There are patterns of disrespect, dishonesty, jealousy, manipulation of events, of communication where you are being belittled or judged. So when I say toxic relationships in this context today, I mean relationships that are actively threatening you in some way, or relationships that aren't healthy for you mentally, emotionally, or physically. That's a little softened down version of everything that we talked about above, because someone might not be abusive towards you, but the relationship still might not be healthy for you, and so some way it is toxic for you. One of the first reasons why I believe that people tend to fall into these relationships or have a pattern of these relationships is that for a lot of people, this is the norm. The norm of being isolated from friends, or a partner getting jealous and yelling at you or threatening you or belittling you, that has become normalized in our society to some degree. And in some ways, I think we've actually glorified it. I'm thinking of jealousy very specifically here, where the overprotective partner is something that has been really glorified, but there's a thin line between protection and someone getting hurt due to that jealousy, due to that quote unquote protection. And so I think that in our society, there are a lot of patterns that have become normalized that aren't healthy for you, or the other person, or for society at large. And yet it's something that's become glorified. I also think for a lot of people, it's the norm because we've grown up in homes where certain behaviors, such as perhaps emotional abuse or physical abuse, is what we witnessed growing up. It's what we saw growing up. And so therefore, we did not know anything different, and we didn't have any other indicators in our lives until we reached adulthood that it wasn't supposed to be this way, that you weren't supposed to be called names by your partner. Those were things that you were just used to, and you've adopted certain behaviors to survive in those situations. And so when you meet a romantic partner who demonstrates a lot of those same behaviors, a lot of those same traits, you already have the protective mechanisms to come out and support you through that time. And the behavior is normal to you. And so you don't expect anything different. And you already know how you deal with it. And so you just fall back into the pattern that has already happened since childhood. Now, certain behaviors may be things that you're used to because of how you've grown up or due to past experiences. But I also think another strong reason why people fall into these relationships or stay in these relationships longer than anyone else think they should is due to fear. Fear of abandonment, fear of being alone, fear that you are unlovable or that you won't ever find someone who wants to be with you. Fear often keeps people stuck where they are. And if you are afraid that if you leave a relationship and you're never going to feel a certain amount of love again, then there can be a lot of bad qualities in that relationship, but that fear keeps you there, because the alternative seems worse to you than what you're currently in. So if you feel that in your life you have seen this pattern of relationships, whether that be from what you grew up in, or whether that be just from your past romantic relationships, what I would invite you to do is get curious. What do you believe is normal in relationships? What do you think is normal to expect in another partner? What are you afraid of in not having relationships that look like this. Get curious about it. Get curious about what you are attracted to and why. Get curious about all the beliefs and all the fears that you have around relationships, not from a place of judgment, but from a place of compassion and curiosity, because that's going to uncover, that's going to unveil the subconscious beliefs and the subconscious patterns that are leading you to replicate these relationships going forward. Now, relationships that have a tendency to be toxic, I also find have a tendency to have highs and lows in the relationship. It's what I call the love roller coaster. And a lot of people are addicted to that cycle, addicted to those highs and lows. And there are some hormonal chemical reasons for this. When you're going through that cycle of highs and lows, it's activating the fight or flight, which activates the release of adrenaline. And then you have all of these love hormones come in, right? When things get better, when they give you gifts, when they say they love you, when they say nothing's ever going to happen like that again. It's playing with these hormones in the body of adrenaline and then love and dopamine, which create this cycle that people can get addicted to. But the love roller coaster is also normalized by people in society, the highs and the lows. And someone on the outside of that relationship can take a look in and be like, ooh, that's not very healthy. That's not very good. But when you're in it, you're also in it with all the feelings and all of the attachments and all the beliefs that go into it. And again, if this is something that you're used to, then there's also comfort in that pattern. There's also safety and familiarity in what it is that you already know and what it is that you're used to. And your brain is always going to try and keep you safe. And one of the ways that brain keeps you safe is by keeping you in what the brain knows, even if that is not healthy for you, even if that is not good for you, even if that is not getting you any closer to the relationship or to the life that you want. When there's the release of all of this adrenaline and when we are going through the highs and the lows, there's a sense of excitement in it. And people like excitement. People like a break from the mundane day-to-day life. I've had clients in the past say to me that they are afraid of healthy and committed relationships because they're afraid of it feeling boring. They're afraid of it not going anywhere, not having the same amount of excitement as these drama-filled relationships that weren't healthy for them. But excitement can be woven in and created in healthy, stable, committed relationships, because relationships are only boring if you let it get boring. If you only stick to the mundane day-to-day things, then that's all you're going to get. One of my favorite shows is Ted Lasso. And there's a character in Ted Lasso named Roy Kent who was racing to get to one of the football matches that day. And in the car, he was talking to a cabbie and talking about love and relationships and all that goodness. And he said to the cabbie, date your wife. Date your wife. One of the reasons that the stable, healthy relationships tend to get stale, tend to get boring is because we stop dating our partner. We stop looking for the things that excite them. We stop creating the experiences that build in those highs. I think that having a relationship that is healthy and stable but still exciting is an incredible skill. And if you want to have the stable partner, the partner who wants to create a life with you, who prioritizes you, who loves you deeply on a level that you've never experienced before, then that's a skill that has to be learned as well. The skill of creating romance, of creating variations in the day-to-day life, in creating depth. That has to be interwoven into the relationship. relationships that are the highs and lows for a not very positive reason, aka because there's big explosive excitements and I don't love you and I never want to see you again, to that makeup, to that love, I love you so much, I didn't mean it. That's almost an easy form of drama, right? It naturally happens. And the other side of it, the stable, healthy relationship, that's intentional highs and lows. That's intentional. And the low is like the mundane day to day. It's not even the crushing, self-doubt and does anybody love me? It's just the day to day level of, okay, yep, we have bills to pay and we have things to do and we have places to go. It's the intentional creation of the highs, and then the natural, I don't even want to say low because it's just the baseline that can feel low if you're not having the excitement, or can feel boring if you're not having the excitement interwoven in. Whereas the toxic relationships, yes, there's the highs and the lows, and yes, there's a sense of excitement, but you've got to start getting curious of whether that's actually what you want. Because we can say we don't want that, but then we still choose it. We as people are really, really good at lying to ourselves. Like really, really good at it. And so if you feel like you're always going through the highs and lows in relationships, and then you're like, oh, this stable, really nice person who cares about me is boring, then you've got to start getting curious. Where do you like the drama? Where are you into the drama? Where are you into being treated poorly? Where is that helping you? Where is that getting you off in some kind of way? Because if you just like experiencing the highs and lows, there's reality TV for that. And they're getting paid a whole lot more money for all of the emotional turmoil than you are. So if you keep finding that you're going through this emotional roller coaster, this high and low roller coaster, again, bring back that curious eye, bring back that compassion. Where do you believe that this is what excitement means in a relationship? Where do you believe that this is what romance or a love story looks like in a relationship? Because there are other ways of creating excitement that are a whole lot more enjoyable than having your heart crushed every couple of weeks or every couple of months. I wasn't going to talk about this today, but I also think this is a great time to introduce the concept of pleasure points, which is we have pain point in our lives, the most amount of pain that we can experience before we do something about it. But we also have pleasure points, the most amount of pleasure or joy or love we can experience before sabotaging it. If you believe that you are not deserving of something, then you will sabotage your having of it. If you believe you are not worthy of a healthy relationship where someone also loves you and is exciting, then you will convince yourself that that's not a possibility for you and you will sabotage it, even if it's right here in front of you. So I would also invite you to ask yourself, like, how can you let it be good? How can you let it be amazing? How can you let yourself enjoy your life more, your love more, your present reality more? How can you indulge in the person who is devoted to you? How can you make that right instead of making it mean that something is wrong or boring? Relationships that are healthy and nourishing and stable can feel uncomfortable or wrong to you if it's something that you're not used to. I used to work as a personal trainer. And I used to have conversations with people who would do PT. And one of the things that we talked about is walking and how we all have these certain ways that we walk, but they are learned walking ways and not actually the best way to support our bodies when we walk. And so when someone changes their gait, how they stride or how their foot position is or how much they turn their legs in or out for their hips, it can feel abnormal to them. It can feel wrong to them, even if it is more supportive of their body, even if it's just a new way of walking that they have to learn. And then they're not going to have hip pain or shoulder pain anymore because of it. So sometimes the relationship that you want might not feel normal to you. It might feel uncomfortable to you. And until you can learn how to walk differently in your love life, then you're going to revert back to the old ways that aren't really helping you or aren't allowing you to really fully express yourself or be in the love, be in the life that it is that you want. People also stay in this pattern of relationships when they are ignoring the signs that someone is clearly giving them. Someone may tell you one thing, and I'm one of those people who I believe the words and I pay attention to the action. I will believe you when you say something to me, but if there's action that tells me otherwise, I'm going to look at that and I'm going to question what you're telling me. Pay attention to someone's behavior. Pay attention to someone's patterns. Pay attention to when their words are not matching up with their actions. Pay attention to your gut. So often we ignore our intuition when it comes to relationships because of fear, because we're afraid of being alone. Someone will show you who they are so long as you look. When we don't pay attention to the actions of another person and when we only believe what it is that we want to believe, that's when we create a false reality. And real love cannot be sustained in a false reality. That's where some of the deepest heartbreak happens. When we have a version of someone in our heads as opposed to the version that's actually in front of us. There's also the attachment to what it is that we ultimately want. We want a partner that looks or is a certain way or has a certain job or has a certain personality. We have an idea of what a relationship looks like in our head. We're attached to the relationship. We're attached to dating somebody. Where are you attached to the idea of something as opposed to the thing that is right in front of you? Where are you attached to the idea of something as opposed to being attached to doing the work to create the love or the relationship or the life that you want? Sometimes we are attached to the wrong thing. We're attached to the concept as opposed to what it actually takes to create it. So much of being in relationships that are healthy and loving and stable and committed and allow you to express yourself for all that you are and be loved for everything that is true about you is relearning what it is that we think we know or we think we believe about relationships and love and being with somebody. And also relearning and reteaching ourselves our beliefs about ourselves and really connecting to ourselves in a different way and connecting to another person and to life in a different way. It's so much relearning. And when you reflect back on what it is that you think you believe about relationships and what you think is normal, and then you look towards what it is that you actually want and the relationship you desire, you'll start to see how to bridge the gap and what beliefs need to change and what beliefs and what patterns need to change in order to get from A to B. So a lot of this is being curious about yourself, being curious about what it is that you think, what it is you believe about relationships and how you are actually operating based off of those thoughts, based off of those beliefs, as opposed to what it is that you actually want and reforming the patterns, reforming the beliefs to support you in getting to what you want, as opposed to staying where you have been. To recap, because I know we talked about a few things, to recap, one of the main reasons we stay in these relationships is because it's what we are used to or what we believe we deserve or what we believe relationships are meant to look like. The other reason is because for some reason we are addicted to them. We are addicted to the cycle. We get excitement out of it. We get something out of it. Even if we wish we didn't, we get something out of it. And the third is people are showing you who they are, but you want to believe something different or you want to believe that you can change them. All right, my friends, we are going to leave it there for today. I hope this served you. I hope this served you in in giving you some questions you can ask yourself to get really curious about how relationships have been going for you and how you can make a change in your own life. Of course, if you have any questions for me, you can go ahead and find me on my website, shiftyourstory.net. You can email me your question. I love receiving questions from people. That allows me to create the best content that actually helps you, that actually supports you in getting the life that you want and shifting your story to the story you want it to be, to what you want your legacy, your love legacy to be. So if you have any questions for me, please feel free to send them over, because I'm a responder. I love to make things that are going to support you. So thank you so much for listening. I hope this served you here today, and I'll catch you next time. Take care.
So make whatever change you need to make.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If something resonated with you in today's episode, if you could leave a review, I would greatly appreciate it. It helps other people learn what we're all about here at Shift Your Story, and it helps this podcast reach listeners who may need to hear what it is that we have to say. If you would like to connect with me or work with me, you can visit my website at www.shiftyourstory.net. You can also find all of my socials on there so you can connect with me in the way that works best for you. I'll see you next time.